After discussing the issues in contemporary patent, it is also important to discuss. After discussing issues in contemporary patent, it is also important to discuss issues related with the plant variety protection and biotechnology. So, this particular lecture is going to first establish the linkage between the intellectual property right and agriculture. So, TRIPS, trade related intellectual property rights, has made agriculture important, as it was the first global agreement which provided protection of property rights to plant and animal varieties or genetically modified organism through patents or any other legislation. So, it can protect agriculture goods and services through different forms such as patents, trademark, geographical indications and trade secrets. As we have seen in case of patents, which avoids the third party to make, use and sell patented agriculture product. Trademark differentiates agriculture goods and services of different enterprises. Geographical indications, which maintains the origin of a product and protects it from third party, for example, wines and spirit, Darjeeling tea, basmati rice, etc. Trade secrets also helps those agriculture products in terms of hybrid plant varieties. So, we find that TRIPS agreement has given a new linkage linkages to the agriculture sector, and agriculture sector has some way out to preserve and to own certain rights of certain intellectual property. So, it was the United States which first time made the law in intellectual property right related to agriculture in 1930 as patents of plant in two forms. First is the sui generis Plant Protection Act and then the second Patent Act. Since then, many international agreements have been made for intellectual property right in agriculture. UPOV Convention in 1961 is one which really gives us a broad range of understanding that how plant breeders are also having the rights to protect its innovation. Europe started for protection of IPR for plant breeders in 1961. TRIPS in the last round of general agreement on tariff and trade in 1994, which was the agreement among the countries of GATT in 1994. It was the agreement which provided the protection of plant varieties followed by plant breeder rights started in the late 20th century. Convention of Biological Diversity Treaty 1992 is also important, which also gives the controlling power to assess the genetic resources and biodiversity. And then Commission on Intellectual Property Right in 2002 highlighted the absence of IPR in agricultural research. So, plant breeder rights, patents, geographical indications, all these new terms were evolved, and all these terms are the part of the intellectual property rights related to agriculture in general. So, what basically the benefits of intellectual property rights in agriculture, because as a part of the issues involved in the biotechnology and plant variety protection of plant variety is linked with the what benefits of intellectual property rights is having in agriculture sector, because intellectual property rights is really important in cereal seeds technology for the food security region perspective through the green revolution. It also promotes the IP rights, promotes private sector in developing plant varieties. Research and development in biotech has increased the yield and nutritional level of the plants, and intellectual property right also provides incentives to domestic agriculture through foreign companies. We also find out that economic colonialism is led by the intellectual property right, Many critics argue that this is a new type of colonialism which is developed with the help of intellectual property rights, especially in agriculture sector. So, new technological change, agriculture system from the level of subsistence to the commercialization is being seen in many countries today, including some part of India. We find out that instead of agriculture is not only especially in some of the states where we find that it is not only the matter of survival for the farmers, but some of the farmers are really active in commercializing the agriculture. So, there is a competitive effects quality, competition affects quality, volume and consumption pattern in agriculture, and we find that lots of commercial crops are coming up in India and in other neighboring country. So, how it happened? It happened with the help of the IPR technology and intellectual property rights firms which has really developed some of the crops, some of the seeds, some of the plants, which really motivating the new dimensions in agriculture, new productivity in agriculture, and leading us to a different quality, volume and consumption pattern in agriculture. So, IPR, intellectual property rights, provides the incentive for innovation, and it also provides the opportunity to transfer the technology in agriculture. So, two related issues, one is the acquisition of technology and the second is the adoption of technology is related with biotechnology and related with protection of plant variety in agriculture. So, technologies in agri-biotech products are mostly found in developed countries. Sometimes technology affects rights of indigenous people and local communities, as we have certain examples from many parts of the world, where we are finding that certain technologies are not really taking care of the local community. So, there are certain challenges of intellectual property rights in agriculture sector. So, developing and less developed countries, as we know that these countries are not really country which has more capacity to invest in R&D. So, they lack in the new patents, legislations were very poor, and still they are trying to resolve that issue, and these countries are requiring the technology to innovate. So, due to certain preconditions of underdevelopment in terms of technology, these countries are suffering from the lack of proper resources, IP management, product clearance and evaluation, etc. So, the intellectual property right in agriculture attached with the food security, biosafety and natural resources and access to the genetic resources in these countries. So, in policy framing process at national level, policy makers have to comply trade related investment measures agreement also, and farmers safeguard also when they are inviting investment, especially in the biotechnology sector or in certain other sectors. They have to be very much sensitive, because the major goal remains to provide best technologies to local producers and increase quality of resource such as germplasm. So, in biotech market, policies are designed such that vital inputs of agriculture are accessible and monopoly of multinational companies are avoided. So, international treaties and farmers' technological knowledge are complementing in some country, but not complementing in many countries, especially least developed countries and other developing countries are not in the position to get the complementarity of the international treaties for the farmers' technological knowledge. So, what are the farmers need? Because we do find that patent helps farmers to access new technologies and fight plant diseases and pests and climate change, etc., through innovations. And it gives control and protection to the patentable plants and animals from the third parties. But with patent, a plant variety can be prevented to be used in breeding purpose but a breeder can use a protected variety for another variety, thus patents are more stronger than the breeding. So, sometimes patent force farmers to buy new seeds instead of their own harvested seeds. So, these are the new challenges for the farmers, and whether the farmers are really having a clear cut control on the seed which they want to cultivate for the next crop, which they want to use for the next crop, that is again one of the major issue. So, how critical patent can be for the plants? So, one side is the condition when the innovation protected by patent system, which cannot be copied without permission, need to pay, then only market can be developed. R&D increases due to increase in the market incentives. Producers and consumers both are having the win-win situation, because especially when the consumer is having the capacity to pay, and if innovations are leading them to the new consumerism in the set of new consumer goods, then the consumers are really happy, and as well as the producers are really happy. But the other part of this plant protection, plant variety protection, when an innovation not protected by the patent system, no market develops and it can be easily copied. R&D decreases due to the no incentive from the market, and producers and consumers both are losing, and the situation of loss occurs. So, it is important to really patent or really have the intellectual property of the plant varieties, because in absence of such plant varieties, there isn't any incentives for the society to really control the varieties available with them, and so there are chances for easily copying those plant varieties by others, and all depends on what type of investment capacity a country is having, or what type of farms or R&D facility a country is having. They can really acquire the genes and they can use really the biotechnology to evolve a new product, and they can really patent, and they can get the incentives because they are the real producers, and they can again find out the consumers. Since they have the patent rights, they can find out the consumers not in one country but many countries. So, plant variety protection, also called plant breeders' rights, increase new varieties, access to foreign plant varieties, market and competitiveness. Plant breeders' rights are protected through International Union for the Protection of New Varieties of Plants, set upon 2nd December 1961 and revised in 1972, 1978 and 1991. Protection term changed from minimum 15 years, 18 years for trees under UPOV 1978 Act to minimum 20 years and 25 years for trees. A plant variety is protected from other plant breeders from producing if it is new, distinct, uniform and stable. Plant breeders' rights is not given to the breeders if breeding acts are done privately and for non-commercial purpose or experimental purpose, and the purpose including provisions of Article 14(5) which apply acts referred to in Article 14(1) to 4 in the UPOV Convention Act of 1991. So, plant variety protection, as new plant variety is generated, it is applied for the plant variety protection, then it is licensed with letter which gives to the royalty. This royalty again generates new income which is invested in the further R&D activity. So, private firms play important role in commercializing the plant breed varieties, and research work under genetic use and restriction technologies, which includes many forms to control actions of the genes in plants. We are finding that China, Kenya, Poland, Republic of Korea, or Netherlands are some of the examples which has already protected some of the plants, and this shows that some of the countries are really sensitive to have this plant variety protection. But two important questions which comes here is, should private sector be allowed to explore potentials of biotechnology for developing countries, and can innovation and accessibility issue be solved by intellectual property right through R&D. So, to answer these questions, we have to see the invention cost and innovation cost included by the genetically modified organizations, and these organizations are really putting hard to develop a new types of crop, new types of seeds, new types of plant, and in that case a huge cost is involved by the private parties, and since the private parties are investing a lot, so they want return, because ultimate goal from such activity is to make profit. So, in case of India, if we see the recent scenario in India, especially Monsanto, a US based agriculture company which sells leading seeds, brands, technology, hybrid etc. across countries, that entered in India in 1988, and India started using GM seeds in cotton in 2002. So, Monsanto introduced BT technology in India in 90s and was officially approved in 2002. It has gained monopoly in seeds and led to the debt trap, royalty extraction, monoculture in cotton, and farmers resulting suicide in cotton belts. Bandna Siva called it suicide seeds, as since its coming about 3 lakh Indian farmers have committed suicide due to the failure of BT cotton. So, this is one of the issue with the current set of commercialization of agriculture and the current set of seeds available to the developing countries, because all these seeds needs proper irrigation facility, proper care, and which many farmers are not in the position to really sustain in a country like India. So, this plant variety protection, biotechnology and traditional knowledge, we will again have a separate discussion on issues related to traditional knowledge, but in some case, like in case of patent, we have seen that neem and also the turmeric example and also the basmati rice example is not far away from the traditional knowledge network. We find out that the plant variety protection, biotechnology and traditional knowledge are interlinked. So, country must do a better arrangement to control biopiracy and unfair usage of gene, and if a country is really failed in protecting the biopiracy, stopping the biopiracy and unfair use of genes, then there are many firms, many countries available, many organizations and multinationals are available in the world to really capture the opportunity to get certain genes and certain biomaterials which can be further used to produce a new variety of plants and seeds, and which can really monopolize the world in a different way. So, with this discussion, I hope that you will be in the position to understand that how plant variety protection is important, and why some of the countries has adopted a very exclusive or you can say a very special form of protection that is named as the sui generis system of plant variety protection. So, with this note, I must conclude that as a part of intellectual property rights, the traditional knowledge or the biotechnological products and the plant varieties are interlinked, and it needs further attempt to protect, especially in the bio-rich country like India. Thank you.